So welcome to my channel. That's what we call the good life. It's October and I'm going to be showing you some of the jobs I'm going to be doing in my home garden and on my allotment during this month. Now, one of the jobs that I've been doing this morning, and if I'm honest I should have been on it a little bit more, is picking off some of my tomatoes. I know some people pick their tomatoes off already and they're ripening them somewhere else, and that's perfectly okay. I prefer to ripen mine on the plants naturally if I can. So if you're like me and you've left them on there, I'm just going to give you some tips now on what to do. Now, we've had a tremendous amount of rain in Kent over the last few days, and if I'm honest I should have been picking them off sooner. The downside to not picking them off sooner is some of the fruits will start to split and the skins deteriorate. Now if they've just split and they've not gone bad, it's perfectly okay to eat them. So if they've just split a little bit, but if they're starting to go a little bit funny, then you don't really want to eat them. But if they've just split like that one, where there's just a little bit of a split on there, there's nothing really wrong with the tomato, you can still eat it. But what will happen is they just will not keep very well at all. So you know, the idea is to either cook them or eat them straight away, but a better idea is to be a bit more on it. And when they start to ripen, so when they're a little bit more like this, take them off when they've not fully ripened, and then just finish them off on the windowsill. So I'm going to start to take mine off. They've almost ripened, but they're not quite there. If I leave them on there and we get another really heavy bout of rain, the chances are it's going to split a little bit too much, and then they're just not going to last. As you can see, there's no splits on that one at all. It's almost right, but not quite there. So if I just pop that on my windowsill, that will finish off ripening, but I have more naturally ripened it rather than just taking them straight off the plant. And the same with a few on there as well. So these aren't going to go on for much longer, as you can see, because I've nearly picked them all off anyway, so they've done really, really well. And one of my jobs is, when they've all finished, I will obviously clear this section up. I've still got a few things in my greenhouse, so believe it or not, I've still picked another cucumber off today, which I can't quite believe. But again, I'm sure these aren't going to go on for a little bit, for too much longer. What I'm doing is I'm only opening it up on warmer days. So we've got a slightly warmer day today, so I've opened it up to give it a bit more air. But a lot of the time I'm keeping the door shut, because obviously once it gets really, really cold, the things won't grow. I've noticed my aubergines have started to slow down a little bit as well, but I still took a couple of aubergines off this morning as well. So I'm still getting a little bit, but obviously things are starting to slow down. So we're going to pop up the allotment and I'm going to show you some of the jobs that I'm doing up there. So we're now up the allotment and I'm going to go through what I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks. So my little checklist of things that I need to do. So one of the things I need to be doing is turning over my composter. It's a bit of a mess at the moment, and so I'm going to be moving. I've got 3 bays there, albeit really rather rustic looking, but I will be moving the bays over. I've also got some well rotted compost which I will be putting on my garden. So that leads me on to putting down rotted manure or compost off your composter, or putting green manure on your allotment as well over the winter. So it's a really good time to be doing those jobs now. Getting the weeds up this time of year. The work you do in October saves you so much work at the start of next year. It's really, really worth it. So even though it seems a little bit tough, the ground's softer before it starts to freeze and a lot easier to work on. So putting them, digging it over, putting the manure on is a really good time of year to be doing that. If you want to be splitting any rhubarb, you can be doing that now. I often also put a little bit of mulch. You can either put, some grass clippings or some well rotted manure around your rhubarb as well this time of year. If you've not taken your apples and your pears off of your fruit trees, it's a really good time to get them off in October. I've got a few that I've missed here that I need to get off. If people don't know, most pears do not ripen on the tree, they ripen off the tree. So if you're waiting for them to ripen, you'll wait a very long time. So I've just got a few here that I've obviously missed. All my apples are already off, unless I've missed any. So let's get the last of these pears off. So that's the job you can be doing. Something else you can be doing, you can be pruning your soft fruit trees, bushes. So things like your raspberries and my blackberries, albeit didn't do very well this year, and my gooseberries and my blackcurrants. So that's a job you can be doing in October. You've still got quite a lot of months to do that. That's not one of the urgent ones. More urgent ones are definitely getting the weeds and getting stuff dug over ready for next year. That's definitely something that you'll be very grateful of in the spring if you've done that. So I did a little bit of weeding yesterday around about a week or so ago around my leeks, because they were getting quite weedy, and even just after a week it looks like they've grown a lot better. I was quite disappointed that my leeks really weren't filling out at all, and I actually wondered whether it was worth doing the weeding. I thought, well, they're there now, what else am I going to do? So I cracked on and I weeded around them, and I'm sure they've definitely improved in size. So as we move down, I've dug my potatoes. So if you've not dug all your potatoes, it's a really good idea if you do it in October. They say obviously the frost can affect it, but the biggest thing if you don't dig them up is you get far more slug damage or wireworm damage if you don't get them up in October. And the longer you leave it towards the end of October, the worse it will get. I've dug up about 3 bagfuls and I'm really quite pleased with them. I used a different variety for my main crop this year, which I actually can't remember, but I'm going to try and get my cameraman to look up, and we'll try and pop it up on the screen if we can work out which one it was. Because last year I had such bad wireworm and slug damage, it was almost soul destroying, but this year much better. So as you can see, that quite a lot of lovely big potatoes in there. So I've got 3 lovely sackfuls. I put mine in Hessian sacks, and then I put them in a cardboard box, and I keep them in a cold, dark place, or as cool as I can. It's always difficult this time of year because you want to keep them somewhere cool and somewhere dark to store them quite well. But if you're anything like me, there aren't many cool places in and around my home or my garden I can put them. But I just try and choose the coolest room in my house is what I do, and I put them in the Hessian sacks, and then I've usually put them in a cardboard box as well, just to keep the light out, because we don't want them shooting, and we want to keep them cool as well, again, to stop shooting. So I'm still harvesting lots of things. So obviously I've harvested the potatoes, which is really important, you do them in October, as with things like your apples. Still got a few beans and kale that I'm harvesting, and also some of my broccoli. I dug some carrots up, which are doing really well, which if we pop over we can take a look at those. I cover them with Enviromesh because I find that I've never had them grow so well since I've used Enviromesh. It keeps the carrot fly off, not 100%, but pretty much. So I've got a really decent amount of carrots there. So I'm really quite chuffed with those. It's got to be one of my best years. I'm not the best carrot grower in the world, but I do find the Enviromesh really helps. It's not cheap, but it really does what it says. It really does what it needs to do. If you've not got any, I can put a link up on the screen and also one in the description. We do have an Amazon shop, and I do have to tell you I'll make a little bit of money out of it were you to make a purchase, but you can buy it anywhere. But there are links there if you want to get some. So I've got beetroots, which are starting to come towards the end, but I'm still harvesting those, so they're not quite as good as they were, but I've still got some lovely sized beetroots in there. And as you can see, I've also got some lovely Bright Lights chard next to it, so that's doing really well. My French beans have all finished, so I'm just leaving them on there to try and let them, swell out and get some seed for next year, and I shall use those for that. Lots of people are very impatient about harvesting their squashes and pumpkins. So if you follow me, I do often mention it when to harvest them. I do harvest them in October. I try and keep them as close to the end of the month as I possibly can, because the more they're out in the sun and the more they're on the plant, they ripen and they will store better. That being said, all depending where you are in the country, you might need to cut them sooner, but they can take a little bit of frost. So it's only in the beginning of the season that a little bit of frost would kill the plant. A little bit of coldness is okay this time of year. It's only if it gets really cold it could cause a problem. So I prefer to leave mine out in the sun so they ripen naturally and store a little bit better. That being said, the ones that look a little bit riper, I am starting to eat them, and I'm going to take a few home with me today to share with some friends and family, because I seem to have an abundance of them. I've got some here and some in the bottom bit down there, and I've grown well over 60 this year, so it's definitely been a really good year for me with squashes. So like I said, I shall cut a few that are going to be eaten immediately, but the ones that I want to store will stay on here for probably another 2 weeks or so, and then I will obviously cut them all and I'll take them home and I will store them. People ask where to store them. Don't put them somewhere like in the back of a garage or something like that, or in the bottom or the back of the shed. I've got a conservatory and I put mine around my windowsill so I can keep an eye on them. So again, they get more light on them and they store a little bit better. I know my father-in-law keeps his in his greenhouse, but you would need to keep a little bit of an eye on the weather because they could get a little bit cold in there. And what you're looking for with the squashes is you want the stems to be dying off. So like these ones here, that's a sign that they're almost ready to harvest. So lots of people worry when they see all the plants dying off that their fruits are going to die off. The stalks and the leaves dying off are a natural part of the process of the plants being ready to harvest. And when I cut them, you leave a decent amount of stalk on them, so you don't cut them right back, you leave a bit of stalk. Obviously these have died off completely, so you've not got an awful lot of stalk. But if you had a plant where the stalk hadn't died off very much, and you needed to cut them off because like the weather was turning, you know, say one like this where it's still quite green, I would cut a bit more stalk off with it. I wouldn't, let's look at this one because that one's actually been knocked off the plant. This one here, so see this one here, the stalk's actually still quite green. Rather than cutting it off there, I would cut a little bit more off, because when they rot, they generally often rot from the stem down. So if you cut it off a little bit further, it kind of helps that from not happening really. Like I said, so I hope that really helps, so you'll know when to pick your squashes. So my courgettes, they do look a little bit tired and a little bit sad, but I have still got some little ones on there, so I am still harvesting a few of those now. So I will leave my squashes, my courgettes out until they stop producing anymore. I don't clear them, but that would probably be towards the end of the month. And when that happens, when I do clear all these, I will then obviously dig this over and cover it with a little bit of weed membrane. And if you've not got any weed membrane, again, another really, really handy thing to have, a little bit like the Enviromesh. So when I clear the ground and I'm not going to put anything in its place, I'll dig it over and then I'll cover it with some weed membrane, and it will stay on there all throughout the winter, and then I'll lift it in the spring when I start to plant some more. If you've not got any and you want to purchase some, we'll put a link up on the screen and one also in the description. I started using it a few years ago, and it just saved me so much time with not having to worry about the weeds coming in the spring, because they come quicker than you can blink, that's for sure. And that brings me on really nicely to supporting your plants and also still keeping them covered with netting. As you can see, we've had a little bit of a makeshift event happen here, in the fact that we've had some really, really high winds with all the rain we've had. And I'm still getting a few runner beans, not that many, but I'm still getting a few, and I'm not prepared to cut them down. So we've had to support these a little bit more with the high winds we've been having. So whether it's your beans or whether it's your brassicas that might need a little bit of support, maybe you've got some Brussels, do make sure things are well supported so they don't fall over and break, and then obviously you lose your lovely crops. And it's still worth keeping things netted, because there's still a chance of the white cabbage butterfly and also the pigeons getting hungry and taking your lovely crops. And obviously with this time of the year, our coverings start to get a little bit rickety because things start to get a little bit bigger, and it's easy to kind of like not have things covered properly and then to lose things. So it's worth checking that everything's covered and supported really, really well. And if you're wondering of things that you can sow and plant in the month of October, there is a link up on the screen and there is one in the description, so you can look at what you can be doing now.